Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're going back in time to the Troubles in Northern Ireland. I'm sure many of you remember those days. Bombings, fear, the constant tension.
Yeah, it was a really tough time for everyone involved. A lot of folks don't realize just how intense the intelligence operations were during the Troubles.
Right, and that's what we're going to explore today. We're diving into the world of spies, double agents, moral compromises, all those things that make you wonder how anyone could keep track.
You know, it's amazing when you think about it. A region with barely 1 million people, and there were potentially 1,000 informants working within the IRA alone.
1,000? Seriously?
Oh, yeah. By the mid-1980s, it was the biggest counterterrorism operation anywhere in the world.
Wow, that's a crazy thought. And you brought some incredible material for us to delve into.
Yeah.
We've got excerpts from Dan Snow's History Hit podcast, plus Henry Hemming's book, Four Shots in the Night. It's all about Freddie Scappaticci, the guy known as Steak Knife. He was a British agent, right?
Right. That's right. Steak Knife was deep undercover, right in the heart of the IRA's nutting squad.
Oh man, the nutting squad. That's pretty intense. So the Steak Knife guy, what was his role exactly?
Well, he was a high-ranking member, which meant he had access to a lot of sensitive information. It allowed the British to disrupt a ton of IRA operations. Some even believe his intel might have saved the lives of Prince Charles and Princess Diana.
Hold on, are you serious?
Yeah.
Prince Charles and Diana?
That's what some experts believe.
Hmm.
It's pretty mind-blowing to think about, right? One guy operating in the shadows, potentially changing the course of history.
It really makes you think about all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, stuff we never even hear about. It's like, how much did the government know? And what were they willing to do to protect their interests?
That's the big question, isn't it? I mean, intelligence gathering during the Troubles was this constant balancing act. The government was trying to protect lives, for sure, but they were also using informants who were involved in some pretty awful stuff.
The real moral dilemma.
Totally. And Henry Hemming's book really brings that dilemma to life through the story of Frank Haggerty. He was an IRA member, but he also became an informant for the British. It's a heartbreaking story, a tale of betrayal, fear, and ultimately tragedy.
Yeah, I was reading about Haggerty. His story is wild. He started out just gathering info from his friends, but it sounds like things escalated quickly.
Exactly. He got deeper and deeper, ended up infiltrating a group led by none other than Martin McGuinness.
Wait, McGuinness. As in the same McGuinness who became such a key figure in the peace process.
The one and only. It's strange to think about him back then, leading the very unit responsible for eliminating suspected informers.
Man, what a heavy burden to carry. You can only imagine the kind of pressure Haggerty was under, living that double life. I mean, risking his own safety, his family. It's intense.
Oh, absolutely. It got so bad that he actually had to be relocated to England for his own protection.
He went back, didn't he?
He did. He missed his family, his home, everything. And despite assurances of safety from McGuinness himself, Haggerty returned to Derry.
And then what?
He was found murdered just a few weeks later.
Oh, man. It's just awful. It really makes you question the whole idea of trust during a conflict like that. I mean, if you can't even trust the people who are promising you safety, who can you trust?
It's a question that still haunts a lot of people who lived through the Troubles. Can you ever really build peace on a foundation of secrets, violence, and unanswered questions? I don't know. It's tough.
It really is. Haggerty's story is a stark reminder of the human cost of the conflict. It's not just about politics and ideologies. It's about real people, real lives shattered. Yeah, Haggerty's story really is a perfect example of how messy things were during the Troubles. And speaking of messy, we can't forget about Freddie Scappaticci, a.k.a. Steak Knife. His story is like next level complicated.
Yeah, Steak Knife. Now, there was a guy living a double life. I mean, talk about a spy thriller. He was running the IRA's nutting squad, the very group responsible for hunting down suspected informants.
It's hard to even wrap your head around that, right?
Yeah.
He was sending people to their deaths while working for the people, trying to stop the killings.
Yeah.
It boggles the mind.
It really does. It gets to the heart of the moral compromises that were made during the Troubles. I mean, were his actions justified? Did the intelligence he provided outweigh the cost? These are questions that have been debated for years.
Yeah, it's a tough one. How do you even begin to weigh something like that? Lives saved versus lives lost. It's a moral minefield.
Absolutely. And there's really no easy answer. Steak Knife's existence exposes the dark underbelly of the conflict, how the lines between right and wrong got so blurred.
So how did it all come crashing down for him? How was he exposed?
It started with a TV show, believe it or not, The Cook Report, back in 1993. Frank Haggerty's mother went on the show and publicly accused Martin McGuinness of being involved in her son's death.
Wow. She went on TV. That's incredibly brave.
It was. And it was a turning point. Her accusations sparked a whole chain of events. Police investigations, whistleblowers coming forward. It eventually led to Operation Canova, a massive investigation specifically focused on Steak Knife.
So after all those years in the shadows, the truth was finally coming out. What was Steak Knife's reaction?
He denied everything, of course, even held a press conference where he basically just said, "It's not me."
It's not me. Seriously. Like that was going to convince anyone.
It was a bizarre moment. I think it just made people even more suspicious. Anyway, the pressure kept mounting, and eventually Steak Knife vanished, went into witness protection, living a quiet life in some suburb.
Disappeared just like that. It sounds like something out of a movie.
It really does. But you can't hide from the past forever. In 2016, the announcement of Operation Canova sent shockwaves through everyone involved. The ghosts of the Troubles were back.
So what happened? Did they finally bring him to justice?
Well, not exactly. He was arrested in 2018, which seemed like a huge step, but he never actually faced trial.
Oh, why not?
It all boils down to the whole issue of secrecy surrounding British intelligence agencies, MI5, MI6, that whole world.
Ah, right. They were notoriously secretive, even back then, like their existence was barely acknowledged. It seems strange now, but I guess that's how things work.
Exactly, and that secrecy created this legal gray area. They couldn't really prosecute Steak Knife without revealing sensitive information about how those agencies operated. It was the catch-22.
So they just let him go. After all that,
He remained under witness protection, living a quiet life far removed from the violence he was accused of orchestrating. It left a lot of people feeling like justice hadn't been served, especially the families of those who died.
yeah, I can only imagine. It must be incredibly frustrating to know that someone could be involved in such horrific acts and just walk away.
It's a reminder of how complex the pursuit of justice can be, especially when dealing with something as tangled and emotionally charged as the Troubles. It raises all these questions about forgiveness, reconciliation. Can you ever truly move on without holding people accountable?
It's a tough one. And speaking of accountability, we can't forget about Martin McGuinness. He went from IRA commander to peacemaker. Did he ever address his alleged role in all of this?
It's interesting. For a long time, he was very guarded about his past. Admitted to being in the IRA but wouldn't go into specifics. Seemed like he was focused on the future, building a new Northern Ireland. But then in 2011, when he ran for president of Ireland, the past caught up with him.
So the families of those killed during the Troubles, they spoke out against him.
Yeah, they did, including the Hegarty family. They publicly accused him of being responsible for their loved ones' deaths. He had to face those accusations head-on in the middle of his campaign. It must have been incredibly tough.
You'd think so. I mean, how do you even respond to something like that?
It seems like it took a toll on him. He ended up losing the election, finished in 4th place. Pretty big fall from grace for someone who was considered the front-runner.
Wow. So what happened to him after that? Did he just retreat back into silence?
Actually, no, and this is where it gets kind of surprising. In the years after that election, McGuinness seemed to change. He started talking more openly about his past, expressing regret for the violence.
Really? Like a genuine change of heart?
It seemed that way. He even met with Queen Elizabeth II, which would have been unthinkable just a few years earlier.
That's pretty amazing when you think about it. A former IRA commander shaking hands with the Queen. It's a powerful symbol of how far things have come.
It really is. It shows that even after decades of conflict, there's still room for forgiveness, for reconciliation.
And it's not just about symbolic gestures, right? There have been real efforts to address the legacy of the Troubles, haven't there?
Oh, absolutely. The Good Friday Agreement was a major step forward, but the healing process is ongoing. And the Steak Knife affair, with all its messiness, has definitely pushed people to confront some uncomfortable truths.
Yeah, it's like it's forced everyone to re-examine the compromises that were made, the things that were swept under the rug in the name of peace.
Exactly. There's been a growing demand for transparency, for accountability. People are realizing that true reconciliation can't happen without acknowledging the wrongs that were committed on all sides.
And have there been any actual changes, any concrete steps taken to address those concerns?
There have been some. In 2021, the UK Parliament passed a law, the Covert Human Intelligence Sources Act. It basically lays out what agent handlers can and can't authorize their informants to do.
So no more turning a blind eye to murders or bombings just to protect a valuable asset.
That's the idea, yeah. It's an attempt to draw some clearer lines to make sure that intelligence gathering doesn't come at the expense of human rights.
It's good to hear that they're at least trying to put some safeguards in place. But I mean, as we've seen with the steak knife case, the whole world of intelligence gathering is so murky. It's tough to know where the line is or if there even is one.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance. There are still plenty of people who argue that in certain situations you have to be willing to make tough choices, even if it means bending the rules.
It's that classic dilemma, right? Do the ends justify the means? But the steak knife case really highlights the fact that those choices can have devastating consequences.
No doubt about it. And it raises some really important questions about how we balance security with individual rights, with justice. It's something we all have to grapple with, not just in the context of the Troubles, but in any situation where there's conflict and violence.
Absolutely. Well, this has been quite a journey. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the history of the Troubles to the world of spies and double agents to the ongoing efforts towards healing and justice.
It's a complicated story, that's for sure, full of twists and turns, moral gray areas, and the lasting impact of violence on people's lives.
But it's a story that's important to tell, to think about, to learn from. If anyone's interested in digging deeper into this, Henry Hemming's book, Four Shots in the Night, is a great place to start. It's a real page-turner, and it really gets into the nitty-gritty of this whole steak knife affair.
Definitely worth a read.
All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those minds curious.